Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Coming to America, the first one, starring Eddie Murphy, Arsenio Hall, James Earl Jones, John Amos, Sherry Headley, Madge Sinclair, Eric LaSalle, Allison Dean, Paul Bates, and Louis Anderson, and directed by John Landis. Now, I haven't seen this movie before. This is going to be my first two viewings, but I will say right off the bat, I am looking forward to seeing how part two will be good or better or worse than part one. Because sequels to comedies to me are just a bad idea. But let's get into this movie since I am looking forward to it. Let's see. When the movie starts, it's Prince Akeem's birthday, and Prince Akeem is played by Eddie Murphy, who's really funny as far as his laugh is concerned. When I get to Beverly Hills Cop, you'll see what I mean. Prince Akeem wants to be his own man by doing things on his own, and a woman who has their own opinions, and for example, no forced marriages. And who forces marriages on Prince Akeem? King Jaffe Joffer. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Please forgive me. Played by James Earl Jones, who wants to follow their tradition, and Queen Aeolian. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Please forgive me. Played by Madge Sinclair, or Sinclair, excuse me, who seems more understanding later in the film. Semi, played by Arsenio Hall, takes Prince Akeem to his daily workout, and I think Akeem is a relatable character because he wants a strong, independent woman so he can value her opinions. Semi is a funny comic relief as he always hangs around with Akeem. King Jaffe wants what's best for his son, and that is to listen to the tradition of the prince marrying a princess in Africa, I'll say. Yeah, this movie takes place in Africa before we get to America. And I like all these scenes in Africa. I think it's where they're at, and I really like the production design of the castle where they live. Akeem makes thinks about going to Queens, New York, in America, and doesn't want his father to know he's searching for his own wife. And this plot is good, and I'm in for a fun ride. And I also like the set decoration as these scenes look pretty good, at least in my opinion. When we get to America, Akeem and Semi get in a cab, and as they get to Queens, they hear real Americans and the way they talk, like in a barber shop, for example, where you meet Clarence, also played by Eddie Murphy, Morris, also played by Arsenio Hall, Saul, one last time, uh, played by Eddie Murphy, talking about boxing, which is funny dialogue that Akeem and Semi rent an apartment by a landlord, and Akeem wants to shout, "Good morning, my neighbors, and fuck you too!" Which is rather fucking hilarious, but it's unlike the world today. But I'm laughing as I wish it was realistic, but unfortunately it's not. Akeem and Semi get American clothes and get a brief haircut, and the makeup as Eddie Murphy and Arsenio Hall look and act like elderly people and talk roughly is a good makeup job, unlike the Nutty Professor in the 1990s and Norbit later in his career. But this is the first movie where he did that. And they try to find the right woman in a roller skating disco place and meet so many different women until they get to they go with Clarence to a black awareness pageant, and we meet Cleo McDowell, played by John Amos, his daughter Patrice, played by Allison Dean, and Lisa, played by Shari Headley. And Akeem falls for Lisa, and they get a job at their restaurant, McDowell's. Not to be confused with McDonald's, of course, which it is kind of the joke. As cleaning people, and I'm enjoying myself as well as this plot. I think it's very funny and with some heart into it, but there is a catch. Lisa has a boyfriend named Daryl Jenks, played by Eric LaSalle, who treats her sometimes like her decisions don't matter. And while working at the restaurant, we meet Maurice, played by Louis Anderson, who's a good side character for Akeem and Semi. Akeem meets Patrice while she has lunch with Lisa, and she invites him to a basketball game while Daryl insults Akeem at the game. Meanwhile, a couple of Akeem's fanboys pass by him, and get a picture with him, and Daryl and Lisa arrive to see him, cherished by them, which is weird in a listen interesting kind of way. The next day, Akeem takes a break while Lisa is on a lunch with Daryl, and a robbery occurs by Samuel motherfucking Jackson. And Akeem and Semi stop the robber and gets him gone forever, which was funny. Cleo invites Akeem, and Semi to work at a get together at his place, one as a valet and one as a bartender, and carrying champagne around like this, I'll say. And I do really like the scenes as Daryl forces marriage to Lisa behind her back while taking her father, and Lisa is pissed about it, and she goes outside until Akeem keeps her warm and company as they talk and starting to like each other. And while Patrice likes Akeem, and the next day Semi doesn't feel like going to work, and Akeem forces him to do things are going well between Akeem and Lisa, and Semi decided to screw up the plan. Akeem had the Semi had excuse me had by Semi asking King Jaffe for $1 million in African money, I'll say, and makes out with Patrice and calling himself a prince. And a few minutes later, Akeem gives money to a couple of homeless people, and I'm having a good time with this movie as it is very entertaining. King Jaffe comes to Queens while Akeem and Lisa are at a museum, and it begins with the barbershop to the apartment where they live at and sees Semi with no Akeem in the building to the McDowell's restaurant talking with Cleo as he figures out he's a prince, and Akeem has his face on money, African money I'll say, which did crack me up, and goes to the McDowell house as he has to get going, and Cleo calls King Jaffe to get him over, and Daryl comes over and gets attacked by Dottie the dog, and Lisa figures out Akeem is a prince, which took a little too long, and this movie is close to 2 hours, and I think 20 minutes needed to be cut out of this movie. King Jaffe arrives at the McDowell house and talks with Lisa, telling her she's not the person to marry Akeem, and after she leaves, Akeem tells him and his mother the truth about him and Lisa, as Akeem tracks Lisa down to the subway and gets on the train with her and tries to explain himself to her and asks her to marry him, and she says no at first, and Akeem goes back to Africa to marry the person he doesn't want to marry, and King Jaffe changes the tradition and gets Lisa to Africa to marry Akeem, and the climax has heart, as it is a sweet way to it ended. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give this movie a 7.3 out of 10. I like these characters as they're very relatable in their points of view. This is a funny and entertaining film with a good heart, very good heart, I'll say, by the end of the day, despite it's 20 minutes too long. But it is a fun time, and I am looking forward to the sequel, and I'm coming to it with some optimism and an open mind. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and I will be back with Coming to number 2, America. And until then, we're going to America.